What is up, people of YouTube? I'm your host Vernon. This is Veteran Memorial Park. Let's fish that. Alright guys, technically I am not in Las Vegas. I am one town over. We are in Boulder City. We are in the center of the city in Veterans Memorial Park. Depending on where in Vegas you live, this might actually be closer to you than some of the other parks that I have visited before. So normally between filming videos and uploading my videos, it's normally something like a week to 2 weeks. However, this year in 2020, I am going to try and shorten this period, meaning trying to upload the videos in the same week at least, so that the guys out there want to use any of the information in the current temperatures and weather circumstances, that they can actually do that. That being said, it is January. We are still in the middle of winter. Focus for today is going to be catching some stock trout out of this pond, but rather than using something like the power baits, I want to try something different. Okay, so you guys actually see a very compressed 10 or 12 minute video of my entire day. However, for me it's not that short a time. I actually do spend a lot more time out on the water than 10 or 12 minutes. This gives me time to actually study the waters, the birds, the fish, and see how they react, see what's going on. Because of this extra time that I have studying everything around me, I have noticed one thing. You seem to have a good morning bite, and then suddenly during the rest of the day it slows down a lot, and then in the evening or in the late afternoons the bite tends to pick up again. Now, I have a hypothesis of why I think this happens, and it all has to do with these little cormorants we have in the waters. It's normally something about 9 o'clock thereabouts. These birds actually go into the water and they start chasing the fish. I think that during this period of time, the fish are so stressed that they're actually not in a feeding mode, they're more in a survival type mode. This is why I think something like power baits don't work during this time period, because the fish aren't looking for something to eat, they are trying to escape these predators chasing them around. They do, however, seem to react to stuff like spinners, mouse tails, and even flies. I believe the reason for this, they are more of an instinct type bite, something quickly moving in a small size, quick easy meal. It's more a reaction more than them hunting for food. So to test out this theory of mine, I'm going to try and catch some fish in this pond using my fly rod. Now before you say, but I don't have a fly rod, I don't want to watch this, I'm not actually going to teach you guys stuff from the fly rod. I want to explain stuff regarding the nature of the fish and the nature of these flies. And even if you don't have a fly rod, you can always use a fly by using a little bobber with a leader and putting a fly on there as well. However, I want to use this as an explanation for what I think is wrong and why you struggle to find these fish during the day, and how to use something like flies or fly fishing techniques to help you catch these fish. Fly fishing is to fishing what bow hunting is to hunting. It is a different style of fishing. One where you use a different tactic. You have to kind of be more actively hunting the fish. It helps if you can see them, it helps if you know where they are, targeting them. If something like spinners don't work, especially on these little stock trout, normally they are so small they're not interested in the spinners. If you're finding problems like that, switching over to flies, it's a more finessey type of fishing, and you might get the bites from these fish that you wouldn't have gotten on a little spinner. So to show you guys a bit more about the fly fishing, I first need to show you my setup and explain why I have my setup. Alright, so I'm just going to face away from the lake or the pond at the moment, just to try and reduce the noise from the wind. Alright, so fly fishing can be expensive, however it doesn't have to be. This little rod and reel setup that I have here cost me $30 for the set. Alright, most of the places you'll find rods and stuff is going to be a lot more expensive than that. However, shopping around you might get some good deals if you are, like me, a budget fisherman. What I do have here is a 2.7 meter or 8-foot rod, and the little green line I have on here is floating line. Now the line you use is actually quite important, as you are not casting a lure, you are actually casting the line itself. And quite importantly in fly fishing, you have to use your wrist. It's all in the wrist. It's not an arm action, it's a wrist action. Alright, so most of the people I see around here, they actually have a sinking line, or they have a lead inserted line. This helps with casting, also helps get your flies down to the bottom, especially if the fish are down on the bottom. I, however, have floating line on my setup, because my setup is actually more for rivers or streams, places where you don't necessarily have to go all the way down to the bottom, but I have found that it is easier to get the floating line to sink than it is to get sinking line to float. Likewise, it's easier to sink the Titanic rather than raising the Titanic from the bottom of the ocean. Alright, and then attached to my floating line I have a 6-foot leader or tippet. It is thicker on one end, and as it goes along it gets thinner and smaller. Okay, the reason for this is quite simple. While you're casting out your line, if you use normal monofilament line or anything like that, what tends to happen is you are creating a whip with your line, meaning that you might hit all the feathers off of your fly, anything like that. Where the little tippet, what that does, it releases the energy. It's the movement of dispersing the energy rather than whipping the fly out. You roll out and present the fly. Alright guys, as most things in life, fly fishing can rather quickly get overcomplicated. For instance, I have a wide selection of flies that I can choose, from little worm imitations to little grasshoppers, little bees, stuff like that, to little things that you would use if you have dragonflies around, or little damsel flies. So it can quickly get rather complicated wanting to use all the flies, testing all the things. So the important thing is to try and keep it as simple as possible. And to do that, you need to be observant. If you, for instance, have lots of blue dragonflies or damselflies around the lake, you want to be using something like these blue ones to try and imitate that, as it would be a food source for these fish, so they would go for something like that. If you have a look around and you're not seeing any insects or mayflies flying around, that might mean that the fish tend to eat something like bait fish that's in the water. For something like that, you get little bait fish imitations, or you can even get little streamers, stuff that swim in the water, imitate bait fish, if that's the food source for the trout that you're trying to target. If you are not seeing any insects on the top, and you are not getting any bites from little bait fish imitations, you are always, you are most likely going to find that these fish are feeding on little insects in the water, and then that is why I have this selection. Most of the little insects in the water are stuff like dragonfly nymphs. It's something that the fish see and instinctively know that it's a food source for them. So when in doubt, always start off with something like a little nymph, unless you can physically see a food source like any flying insects. So all these flies are nice to have, little top water ones, midstream ones, and things that go to the bottom, having little weights on the ends of the heads, taking them to the bottom. I am today going to attempt catching stock trout using these little nymphs to try and show you guys that even if the fish are stocked, it's not something that they're used to as a food source. Using something like this little nymph, the fish automatically recognizes it as a food source for them and will instinctively go for that. So let's go and try and catch some fish. Alright guys, so one of the most important things about fly fishing is being observant and recognizing not only food sources in the forms of insects, but also knowing and seeing where the fish are. Therefore, having something like polarized glasses that helps you see into the water can help you locate the fish, as well as having a look at our little bird friends and knowing where they are and what they are doing as they are chasing the fish, the schools of fish around, knowing where they are going and where they are pressuring the fish to. That is a good place to start, because that is where you know the fish are. You can always cast a fly out into the middle of nowhere and hope that something sees it, but for best results you want to cast to where the fish are. In this pond we have here, we have the birds kind of keeping all the fish in this corner here, back there over where you see all the people on the other side of the bank. That is where the little fish are at the moment. I'm going to go and attempt to catch some fish on that side. I'm not going to talk as I don't want to disturb any of the other anglers trying to catch fish, but I'll show you guys the footage of me trying to catch some fish on that side. those are the fish that I caught. As you saw, I released them all. However, I did catch my daily limit of 3. Therefore, I am not going to stick around. Catching 3 fish is a daily limit for a reason. If I stick around and catch any more fish, I will take the chance somebody else to try and catch these fish. This is not a strict rule that people tend to follow. However, it is a moral obligation to not infringe on other people's fishing experience. So that's going to be it for my fishing trip here, catching these little fish and releasing them, as you saw on the little fly, on stock trout on the fly. Alright guys, so never be afraid to try something different. Try using flies rather than the stuff like power bait or spinners. If you're having good luck on the power bait, good on you. If not, try spinners. If you're not getting anything on the spinners, consider getting some flies, even if you use it on a little bobber and let it dangle, or just trying to swing your line out there, as these fish were rather close to the side and not that deep. That's it for this video, guys. If you'd like to see more of my videos, hit the subscribe button. If you found this video to be informative or entertaining, please give us a thumbs up. Feel free to leave any ideas or comments down below. Ask any questions down below in the comments as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.